The cafe clock hit 6 a.m. the moment I pushed the door open. My son sat at a corner table, hands folded, eyes hollow. Beside him sat the last person I ever expected to see alive. My breath broke in my chest. My knees went weak. The room tilted like it wanted to throw me to the floor. Because the woman sitting next to my son was Emily Hart, the same woman I watched get buried 12 years ago. She looked up at me and smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a sorry smile. A smile that said, "You thought you won." My son whispered, "Mom, please sit." I couldn't move. My heart screamed louder than my mouth ever could. My hands shook so hard I dropped my purse. Emily's eyes followed it as it hit the floor. She knew this moment. She had waited for it. I opened my mouth to ask 1,000 questions. But before I could speak, my son said words that cut deeper than any knife. "She's here to tell you the truth." The truth. About what? About who? About me? The cafe lights flickered once. Emily leaned closer to my son and placed her hand over his. That was when I knew this wasn't just a meeting. This was a trap. And the worst part? I had walked into it on my own. If you want to know how a dead woman came back to ruin my life, if you want to know why my own son chose her over me, stay with me. Like, watch, subscribe. Because this story doesn't just break hearts, it sends people to prison. Now let me tell you who I am. My name is Laura Bennett. I am a mother of one. I used to be a wife. I used to believe love was enough. I was wrong. I raised my son, Ethan, alone after his father died when Ethan was 7. His name was Michael Bennett. He was kind, gentle, a school teacher who smelled like coffee and chalk dust. When he died in a car crash, my world split in half. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I packed Ethan's lunches with little notes that said, "I love you." I showed up to every game, every play, every bad haircut phase. I trusted him, and that trust would be used against me. Emily Hart came into our lives when Ethan was 15. She was his tutor. Pretty, soft-spoken, always smiling too much. I didn't like her, but I told myself I was being silly. Mothers are protective, right? Wrong again. Emily didn't just tutor my son. She studied him. She listened. She learned his fears, his anger, his grief about his father. She became his safe place. And then she became something else. The night everything broke, I came home early from work. I heard shouting, Ethan crying, Emily screaming. When I ran into the living room, Emily was on the floor, blood on her head, my son shaking in the corner. She looked up at me and whispered, "He tried to kill me." That lie changed everything. The police came. Ethan was arrested. I begged. I screamed. I showed them my son's school records, his clean history, his gentle heart. None of it mattered. Emily testified against him. And then, 2 weeks later, she vanished. They found a burned car near a lake. Bones inside. Dental records matched. Emily Hart was declared dead. The case against my son collapsed. Ethan was released, but the damage stayed. The looks, the whispers, the fear in his eyes. I blamed myself. Years passed. I rebuilt us slowly. Ethan grew distant, but I thought it was normal. College. Life. Pain fading. Until last night. At 11:47 p.m., Ethan texted me. "Mom, I need to see you. Please." Café on Grant Street. 6 a.m. I asked why. He didn't answer. That cafe was old. Almost forgotten. The kind of place that smells like burnt toast and secrets. And now I knew why he chose it. Emily Hart had never died. She had planned everything. And my son, my sweet boy, had brought her back into my life. I finally sat down across from them. My legs felt numb. My mouth tasted like metal. Emily tilted her head. "Hello, Laura. You look older." I slapped her. The sound cracked through the cafe. Everyone froze. Emily didn't flinch. Ethan jumped up. "Mom, stop." I stood, shaking. "You destroyed my family. You almost sent my son to prison." She smiled again. "Almost. That word echoed. Almost. Ethan looked between us. His eyes filled with tears. Mom, there's something you don't know. My heart sank. Because when a child says that, it's never small. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Court papers. Old ones. My name was on every page. Emily leaned forward. Tell her, Ethan. My son's voice broke. She didn't lie, Mom. The world went silent. What? I whispered. She didn't lie, he said again. About that night. I felt something snap inside me. And then I saw the police officer standing outside the cafe window, watching us, waiting. And I knew the real punishment was about to begin. The police officer outside the cafe pushed the door open. The bell above it rang once. Loud. Sharp. Everyone froze. My heart slammed so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I looked at Ethan. His face was pale, like he had already been judged and found guilty again. Emily sat back calmly, like she owned the place. The officer scanned the room, then looked straight at our table. Laura Bennett, he asked. Yes, I said, my voice shaking. We need to speak with you. Ethan stood up fast. No. This is a mistake. Emily finally stood too. She raised her hands slowly, like she was helping the moment happen. It's okay, Ethan, she said softly. It's time. Time for what? The officer asked me to follow him outside. My legs moved, but my mind stayed behind. The cold morning air hit my face. Another officer stood near a black car. You are not under arrest, the first officer said. But we have questions about an old case. Emily Hart. I laughed. A dry, broken sound. You mean the woman who died? Emily stepped outside behind me. I didn't die, she said. Your son knows that now. I turned to Ethan. You knew. His eyes dropped. I found her 3 months ago. The words hit harder than any slap. You found her, I repeated. And you didn't tell me? I didn't know how, he cried. She said you would lie again. Again? The officers exchanged looks. One of them opened a folder. Ms. Bennett, he said, Emily Hart has come forward with new evidence. She claims you framed your own son. I felt sick. That's insane, I said. I spent my life protecting him. Emily's voice was calm. Too calm. You protected your image, not your child. They let me go that morning. No cuffs. No cell. Just a warning. But something worse happened. They reopened the case. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my living room, staring at the wall where Ethan's childhood photos still hung. Birthday smiles. Missing teeth. Trusting eyes. Had I failed him? I remembered that night again. The shouting. The blood. Emily on the floor. But now other memories crept in. Emily yelling at me weeks before. Threatening me. You think you're better than me, she had said. You think you own him. I had laughed then. I shouldn't have. The next day, Ethan didn't come home. He left a note. I need space. I need the truth. That broke me more than the police ever could. Emily called me that evening. I'm not your enemy, she said. You ruined my life, I replied. No, she said softly. You ruined mine first. She told me to meet her. Alone. One place. Noon. I went. She took me to a storage unit on the edge of town. Inside were boxes. Photos. Recordings. Evidence. She pressed play on an old voice recording. It was my voice. Shouting. Threatening. You touch my son again, and I will end you. I stumbled back. I was angry, I said. She was manipulating him. And then, Emily asked. She showed me a video. The night of the incident. I was standing over her. She was crying. And I pushed her. She hit her head. Blood. My stomach twisted. I didn't mean to, I whispered. I know, Emily said. But you panicked. You blamed Ethan. You let him be arrested. That's not true, I said. She looked at me. You didn't correct them. Silence swallowed the room. I remembered now. The officer asking, did you see who hit her? And me saying nothing. Emily leaned closer. I disappeared because I was scared of you. I rebuilt myself. I waited. For what? I asked. For your son to grow up, she said. For him to see who really betrayed him. I went home shaking. 2 days later, Ethan was arrested again. This time, not for assault. For perjury. They said he lied years ago to protect me. I ran to the station. Begged. Screamed. Ethan wouldn't look at me. Why didn't you tell the truth, Mom? He asked through the glass. I had no answer. The trial came fast. Media everywhere. Headlines screaming my name. Mother betrays son. Emily testified. I didn't fight her. I took the stand and told the truth. All of it. The courtroom was silent. The judge spoke slowly. Laura Bennett, your actions caused irreversible harm. I was sentenced. 3 years. As they led me away, I looked at my son one last time. Tears ran down his face. Emily sat behind him, smiling. But as the cell door closed that night, something changed inside me. Emily thought this was revenge. She was wrong. This was just the beginning. Because prison didn't break me. It sharpened me. And the day I heard Emily Hart was being investigated for fraud, identity theft, and witness tampering, I smiled in the dark. Because now I had time. And I had a plan. Prison is loud in a quiet way. Doors slam. Keys shake. Women cry at night when they think no one is listening. I learned fast how to stay invisible. I kept my head down. I spoke only when needed. I counted days by the cracks in the wall above my bed. Day 97 was when I heard Emily's name again. 2 women were talking behind me in the lunch line. You hear about that Emily Hart case? One said. Yeah. Fake IDs. Stolen money. Multiple names, the other replied. My heart skipped. That night, I asked the prison library clerk for newspapers. My hands shook as I turned the pages. There it was. Investigation reopened. Emily Hart linked to financial fraud and witness manipulation. She wasn't clean. She never had been. For the first time since my sentence began, I slept. Weeks later, a lawyer came to see me. Her name was Rachel Moore. Sharp eyes. Calm voice. I don't believe you're the monster they painted, she said. And I don't think Emily Hart is a victim. I told her everything. The fear. The silence. The mistake I made protecting my son the wrong way. Rachel listened. She didn't interrupt. She planned this, Rachel said when I finished. But planners always leave trails. Outside prison, things were changing too. Ethan started visiting again. The first visit was awkward. Painful. I hated you, he admitted. Then I hated myself for hating you. I deserved it, I said softly. No, he replied. You were wrong. But she used that. He told me Emily had pushed him, isolated him, told him lies about me even after my arrest. She wanted me angry, he said. She wanted me alone. That was Emily's pattern. Rachel filed motions. New evidence surfaced. Fake records. Paid witnesses. Even the Café meeting, it was staged to reopen wounds and control the story. Then something big happened. Emily disappeared again. This time, no fire. No bones. No car. Just gone. The media exploded. 2 months later, Rachel smiled during a visit. We found her, she said. She's been using another name. Another life. Relief rushed through me. But then Rachel's face hardened. She's claiming you forced her to commit the fraud. She says you threatened her from prison. I laughed. A bitter sound. That's impossible. She has recordings, Rachel said. Messages. My blood ran cold. Emily was still playing. The court date was set. I was brought in wearing orange. Emily walked in wearing white. She looked at me and smiled. Again. The judge called the room to order. Emily took the stand and pointed at me. She ruined my life, she cried. Even from prison. I stood up. That's a lie, I said. The judge banged the gavel. Sit down. Rachel rose calmly. Your Honor, she said, we request permission to play Exhibit C. The screen turned on. Emily's voice filled the courtroom. Laughing. Bragging. Talking about how easy it was to fool everyone. How she planned to bury Laura forever. Gasps filled the room. Emily's smile vanished. She stood up screaming, "That's fake." But it wasn't. The judge ordered her arrest. Handcuffs snapped shut. As Emily was dragged past me, she leaned close and whispered, "You think this ends me?" Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "I already told him." "Told who?" I asked. She smiled one last time. "Your son." And at that moment, I saw Ethan collapse in the gallery. The courtroom erupted. And I knew, whatever Emily told him was worse than prison. Ethan's body hit the floor like his strength had been cut loose. People shouted. Guards rushed in. The judge yelled for order. I stood frozen, my heart screaming his name while my hands shook in cuffs. "Ethan," I cried. They carried him out on a stretcher. I wasn't allowed to follow. I wasn't even allowed to know if he was breathing. That weight almost killed me. Hours later, back in my cell, I got the news. He had fainted. Shock, stress, fear. But he was alive. Alive. I pressed my forehead against the cold wall and cried for the first time in years. The next day, Rachel came to see me. Her face was different. Softer. "Emily told Ethan she was pregnant," Rachel said. My heart dropped. "She said the child was his. She said you tried to destroy them both." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Emily's final weapon wasn't the law. It was my son's heart. But this time, Emily had gone too far. Medical tests proved the pregnancy was fake. The recordings, the fraud, the fake identities, it all stacked up like bricks. Emily Hart wasn't a victim. She was a predator. The judge didn't look at her when he spoke the sentence. "Emily Hart, you are hereby sentenced to 27 years for fraud, witness tampering, identity theft, and obstruction of justice." She screamed. She cried. She begged. No one listened. 2 weeks later, my sentence was overturned. Wrongful conviction. New evidence. Prosecutorial error. The gates opened. The sun felt unreal on my skin. Ethan stood outside waiting for me. We didn't speak at first. Then he stepped forward and hugged me like he used to when he was small, tight, desperate, real. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "So am I," I said. We rebuilt slowly. Therapy. Long talks. Silence when words hurt too much. Some wounds never fully heal. But they stop bleeding. Months later, we visited Michael's grave together. We stood quietly, the wind brushing past us. "I thought I lost you forever," Ethan said. "You almost did," I answered honestly. "And I almost lost myself." Before we left, Ethan looked at me and smiled. "You're stronger than both of them," he said. I watched the sun dip low in the sky. Emily wanted revenge. What she gave me instead was truth. And freedom. Some women are broken by betrayal. Others learn how to survive it. I learned how to win.